Hello, everyone. Good to see you as we're all coming together here at the last minute. So I'm trickling in. Some of you may have been waiting a minute or two. I'm just still fiddling with my technology. So it's exciting to see you. A good solid number tonight. I love it when we're above a dozen. That just really makes for a good interaction. I cannot figure out why my background is backwards. That mirroring calendar there is actually over my right shoulder, but on the screen it looks like it's over my left. So I don't know if that's just my screen doing that or how you're seeing it. If I look funny, that could be the reason. I look funny all the time. So maybe that isn't the reason. Thank you. I already see the message there. So let me go ahead and get started. I'll repeat some of this for people that are trickling in. I know that we're getting home from work. We got dinner, all kinds of things like that to worry about. So I try to give a little bit of time here as we get started. I'll introduce myself and get more formal in just a moment, but let's talk about how to interact. I will stop at the very end. We'll have some question time then, but there's two or three ways to help throughout the evening with questions. These webinars are for you. If you get your questions answered, I consider it a success. If we don't get to your questions, that's a failure on my part. So you'll see at the bottom of your screen, if you're used to Zoom as a piece of software, down at the very bottom center, one from the left, you'll see a little bubble, like a message bubble. It's labeled chat. If you open that, you can type questions in it anytime throughout the evening. That way, I'm sure to get to it later. You can also unmute yourself at any time. If there's something I'm saying in the moment, I really don't want you to have to wait. You may lose the train of thought, and I'll absolutely forget how to integrate it. So interrupt me. I want you to do that. Ask any question that comes. Of course, you can write things down and mention them at the end. Now, if you're more sophisticated than that, and you actually want to react, you'll see in the set of buttons at the bottom of your screen, right next to the chat button, there is on mine, there's a heart, but you can click on that little button and it'll give you a whole section of selections. You could do waving your hand, a thumbs up, a thumbs down, all kinds of stuff. If you just want to kind of raise your hand, that way you're in a priority. I'll come first serve to that list in just a moment. So with all of that said, let me go ahead and push another couple of buttons here to get things started. I get a little distracted in the beginning because I'm having to do this on my own, watch my slides, see who appears as a latecomer to the meeting and let them in. So please don't let me throw you off if I stutter a little bit or something like that. So again, welcome. I'm glad you're here. My name is Scott Collins. I'm an attorney in Richmond, Kentucky. I practice exclusively in Kentucky. So that'll make a difference as I talk about that in just a moment. I also practice exclusively in elder law. I can't help you with your divorce, your bankruptcy, anything at all like that. I have chosen to only work in a very specialized area. It's all I can keep up with. So if you are coming from another state, let's say you're living out of the state of Kentucky but thinking of moving in, or other way around, you're in Kentucky but you might vacation with family members somewhere else in the country or thinking of moving. Remember that what I'm doing tonight is a kind of a twofold approach. I'm educating. I'm not giving you legal advice. There is no substitute for a sit down with the attorney. I use an example of a kaleidoscope. Just like that toy we used to all play with. When you turn the barrel, you get a brand new picture every single time. The law is different on this stuff, every little detail in your family and circumstance. So you have to have one on one to get specific legal advice. So I'm trying to educate you. If you have out of state questions, I'm going to make that clear. And if you need a referral to someone in another state, I'll help you find somebody who would be quality for you there. But on the other hand, as I talked about using the chat button at the bottom or interrupting me or question and answer at the end, the more specific you can be, the more helpful I can be. And I will try to give you direct answers unless I know that it needs to be more nuanced and requires face to face. So, what I want you to be thinking about there is whether or not you want to share any of those details. Now, let me give you another little Rule for the evening. You may have been a client in the firm today. You might have been a client for the past 5 years. I may know you as my next door neighbor, but I'm going to treat everybody like you're a complete stranger tonight. I'm not doing that to be snooty, but I have to protect client confidentiality. So if I don't address you by name, I just simply say, Mr. Smith. That is not because I'm too uppity. It's just because I don't want to let anybody know that you and I may already have a relationship. So on the other hand, if you let the cat out of the bag, then I don't have the responsibility to do anything with that anymore. We can talk openly, but I can't go first. So you make the choice. You be as open as you want to. The more open you are, the more specific I will be. But there's a lot to be said for being private and discreet, and we can always have a one on one. And there'll be a time for us to figure that out near the end. So, with that said, I think I've gone over all the rules. Let me just jump in. I'm going to start my slides up, and then we will go with the rest of our presentation tonight. Okay, you can give me a little feedback here. What you should be seeing is a real neat pencil drawing of the front of the office building that I'm sitting in right now. Is that what everybody's seeing? The black and white pencil sketch? Thank you. I'm proud of that. My daughter is an artist. She lives in Nashville, and I've been asking her to do something for dad. She still charged me, believe it or not, but she does a pretty good job. If you've ever seen the house here, that's not computer generated. That's her actual pencil sketching. And she's doing that for a series of historic homes that we are rehabilitating here in Richmond. So this is the name of the firm, Elder Law Guidance. That house is where I'm sitting in. It's one of three offices that the law firm that I own, the law firm, one of the three offices we have, two here in Richmond, one in London. What we're talking about tonight is Kentucky Medicaid long-term care planning. I'm going over the basics, but I'm going to try to hit all of the myths, all of the details that you need to know so you can make a decision on whether you need help and where do you go for help. So that'll be the scope of what we talk about. If you want to take me off subject, I'm happy talking about anything related to elder law, and I'll tell you what that encompasses in just a minute. A little bit about me. I am former military. I've been around a long time, so I've done a lot of things. I came to law later in life. After the military, 5 years as an air traffic controller stationed across the Pacific Basin and the southern part of the U.S., I left that and then became a minister and did that for nearly 20 years in churches from Texas to New Hampshire. Loved that, was my calling, but because of family circumstances, that ended. And I had to figure out, what am I doing next? And since I already knew a lot about what families went through when people pass away, I thought the perfect thing would be working with those of us in the second and third stages of life, how to prepare for all that comes at retirement and thereafter. And so once I left law school, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I began building the firm and climbed as quickly as I could to make an impact because I really want to help as many people as I can. So that means that I have chaired the section here in Kentucky, leading the other elder law attorneys, been functioning in nationwide groups and train outside of the state of Kentucky quite regularly. But I'm also pretty active in the community too, doing a lot of community service work, but I really love historic homes. Raised by coal miners who lost their job, had to go into the antiquing business. So I learned how to do a lot of stuff like that when I was still in high school. Swore I would never deal with it again, and here I am. Just, I love antiques. I love old things because they tell a story and they connect us to where we've come from. I think there's nothing more beautiful. Other than beautiful people, and this is the team that works behind me, there's another 5 that didn't get their headshot made on time. So I'm not the beauty nor the brains behind any of it, as you can tell. There's a lot of people here that help this stuff come together. There's just such a wonderful system so that you've always got somebody by your side who can have immediate access to you if you were to choose to work with a law firm. Now, what's elder law? This is the stuff that comprises elder law. We're talking about Medicaid tonight, but anything related to VA pension, VA disability, as well as other types of long-term care benefits that you can receive, special needs planning, probate, the stuff you always consider part of estate planning and guardianship. That's what we focus on. If I have any questions about anything related to those topics there tonight, they're wide open. I'm happy to help you with them. We also serve everybody through this section. I have some clients all the way out in Paducah, but this is the primary focus, and you can see there on the state map where the offices are at this point. Yes, sir.
But you're not in slideshow mode, so you're only the first screenshot with the
Am I
pencil
still
drawn.
there? Oops,
Yeah.
why is that not working? I have selected it. Thank you for telling me that. I really do appreciate the feedback. Anything goes wrong, guys, just jump on me and I'll fix it. But I don't know why this isn't working. Let me start again. I know what I've done. Let me change my screen share. It's Zoom that's the problem, not my slideshow. So I'm gonna back up because everybody deserves to see my beautiful face. Just kidding. I'm not gonna torture you. So there's the state map that I was talking about. This is important. The various practice areas, that's what I was talking about. Anything on that list is wide open for us tonight, gang. And I will brag on my team and get a wonderful group of people. I'm very blessed to get to work with these folks. Okay. With all that said, let's talk about the Medicaid madness. I grew up using all kinds of little phrases and stuff like that. And Murphy's Law is one of the terms and ideas that I grew up with very early on. I believe that to work in the Medicaid part of the government, you have to know Murphy's Law forward and backward. Medicaid could mess up an empty room. I worked at the state government in the revenue cabinet. I'm not against government nor government employees, but they're, even from the insider's perspective, I hated the struggle, the software, the environment we had to work. Everything made it as difficult as possible. So if it can go wrong with Medicaid, guess what? It's going to go wrong, even though they're good people working in that section. And I'd hire many of them in a heartbeat, but they are really working against the odds. So we're going to talk about that madness. Now, here's why it's madness, guys. Everything in life, by the time we get to our age, where we're losing our hair or our hair is turning gray or whatever, we think we've got things figured out. And so we don't go to the sources for true data. We talk to friends and family, and everybody's got an experience of how it went wrong. And so we get a lot of information from people that are telling their specific situation, right? Remember the kaleidoscope? Their situation will not help you solve your situation. So that's the first struggle. The second one is if we do go to the internet or something like that, what happens is you're reading articles that are dated. Medicaid rules change on average around 3 times a year. I've seen them change as many as 7 times a year. Besides that, when you're looking on the internet, you don't know if this is Kentucky specific, Indiana specific, Florida specific. And there is all kinds of confusion. And if there's confusion, then we begin to guesstimate. So there's just no real good source for information. Now, what if I actually go to the nursing home? The nursing home doesn't know everything there is about it, and they have a bias. They want to get as much of your money as possible. What if I go to Medicaid? Medicaid wants to lighten their workload. So they're not going to help you qualify. They're just going to tell you if you don't qualify. So there's not a real good source of information, which means you're left with some mean old snake in the grass lawyer as your best source. And then even among attorneys, most attorneys focus in general practice, and there aren't a whole lot of Medicaid specific attorneys. And even when there are, they will tell you that they are practicing Medicaid, but I could list off, if it weren't in bad taste, I could list off half a dozen right now within an hour of me that they will absolutely not be able to handle your case, but they'll take your money anyway. So you got to be really careful. Scrutinize me as well. Talk to my references, look at the website, find people, what was their experience. I'm happy to work you through that. I'll give you other people, if you don't like me, to go try out too. But be careful when you're choosing an attorney, just like you're careful when you choose a doctor, right? You want to know somebody that did a good job for them before you trust them with your health care. You really want to do the same thing with an attorney because you're trusting them with your livelihood, your house, your money, and your health care choices, right? So be very careful. That's why this is very difficult, maddening kind of stuff to work with. Now, here's what I hear. Top three things all the time. Even if you go to Medicaid, go to the nursing home, you talk to your friends, they're going to say, you're going to have to spend everything. There's no way you're going to keep your house. Or some attorney is going to tell you, oh, the best way to protect the house is put the kid's name on it. Or go ahead and give it away to them so you don't have to worry about Medicaid. Every single one of those suggestions are absolutely either flat out wrong, going to cause you a huge problem, or lucky if you get through the system without it doing one of those two things. So there are alternatives, but these are not the ones. So, pardon my little bit of a dry cough. Let's start looking at the way Medicaid works so you have a little foundation. First off, there are some rules. Medicaid, you cannot qualify for Medicaid under the state of Kentucky's rule unless you have $2,901 of income and or less, but there's a federal exception to that. This is part of the reason it's so confusing, because if you go to Medicaid, they will tell you don't qualify, but they don't tell you what you can do is qualify under the federal rules and it'll still all work. There is also an asset limit. So some of your assets, like an IRA or a 401k, the principal amount might be excluded. You get to keep one car. If you're a married person, you get to keep your house. If you're a single person, you do not get to keep your house, but they will give you a 6-month grace period. And on these rules go, they apply differently for single people than they do to married people, and so on. But the bright line rule is if you have more than $2,000 to your name, you don't qualify. So Medicaid has this thing they call spend down. Spend down means that all the money above the $2,000 amount, you have to spend, then you come back to them and you will at that point qualify. But like some of those suggestions on the previous slide, why don't you just give it to your kids? Medicaid penalizes you when you do things like that. So these rules that we're going to talk about in just a minute are very important. I'll give you two things to keep you focused because I'm giving you so much information all at once. But number one, there's the asset limit of $2,000. No matter who you are, no matter how long you wait, you could even wait to the day of or a year after you went into a nursing home. That $2,000 limit doesn't matter a hill of beans to me, because no matter who you are, I can save you at least half and probably something like 70% of all your money. So spend down is not something you should do. You should immediately go see an attorney so you can try to keep some of that money. Now, I'm not saying something politically controversial here. State law says that if you are protecting another person, you should seek public benefits. The Supreme Court of the United States has said you should seek public benefits. You should try to preserve your assets. The government wants you to do that because it's better for them, it's better for everyone. Why don't they write the rules that way? You got to have rules no matter what, but you need to know how to navigate the rules so that you can have a cushion to help you with other things that Medicaid is not going to pay for if you need that long-term care coverage, whether in home or in the facility, because both are available to every citizen. So that's spend down. On the cash, we can save half or maybe even as much as 70%. If you're a married couple, you can save 100%. What about the house? I hear you always lose the house. The house can be saved for anyone, and yet I know thousands of people who got bad advice, even from other attorneys, general practice attorneys, and they did lose their house because they didn't go to a specialist. So none of this stuff is true, even if you have more than $2,900. That doesn't matter either. There is a workaround for every single one of these. So that's why I hope we stay plugged in here, because we can always help you. All right. So I'm kind of jumping ahead. I should have started just asking, why is all this important, Scott? Medicaid, and you're talking about long-term care? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to die at home in my own bed, and I'm never going to have to worry about this. Or My dad's not going to have to worry about this. I'm never sending him to a nursing home. The fact of the matter is, whether we like it or not, 70% of us are going to need long-term care before we pass away. Now, the fact that, and this slide's old, we had a peak in 2026 where the baby boom generation is crested and we're having 11,600 plus people every single day that are turning age 65 right now. Now it's going to start coming down, but for about 15 years, we've been having 10,000 every day, even though we're up in 11,500 every day right now. It's important because if you have too much income, they're not going to let you qualify at all. You have to go follow the rules to make the income exclusion. It's also important because if you spend down according to the I don't know what to call them, the prescribed spend down process, then you leave no money for your spouse. And I don't know about you. I know my wife wants to take care of me. I want to take care of my wife. I don't want to leave them broke after my death. That's the last thing you want to do. So you got to take care of your spouse who's still living in the community. Now, I said 70% of us need this care before we pass. Some of that might be at home. The average length of stay in a long term care facility in the US is 2.5 years. The total length of need in home and facility care for a male is 3.8, for a female, 3.2 years. Now, still, why is that important? Because the cost is so much. Currently, the average cost in the state of Kentucky, if you need long-term care, let's say I fall, I break my hip, and I've got to go to a rehab facility, that costs $138 per month, every single month until I'm no longer needing that care. And what did I just say? 2.5 years is the average, right? So you do the math on that. We're starting to look at $250,000 minimum for 7 out of 10 of us. So it is a huge need. And if you do anything wrong, you're going to get hit with a penalty period. And that is even if you do qualify. Most of the time, they don't help you qualify. You're just going to be private paying until you're broke. But Medicaid is also the only governmental program that requires a payback from its recipients. If you receive Medicaid, if you receive Social Security, if you receive any other sort of food stamps, any other kind of governmental benefit, none of them require payback. But Medicaid works as if it's simply a loan. We'll pay for it now, but when you're passed, we're going to sell your house. And that's what people mean when they say they take the house. They sell it at death and then reimburse themselves. But you don't have to do that either. There's a way to not do that so the house can be preserved for the family and passed on. So these are the reasons why. Okay, let's talk about the cost here. The assisted living cost has gone up to when I started, you could get nursing care for less than what an assisted living facility costs now. But you see there, the third line, 9638 monthly means that we're going to pay $115,000 per year. And if I need that 2.5 years, that's how we're way up into the $250,000, $325,000 range for each of us. Now, the last data I got, it was last year. I've not looked at anything this year. What we have in the United States is at retirement at age 65, the average couple has $120,000 in savings. Now, I hope you've got more than that. If you have less than that, you shouldn't be embarrassed. This is a problem many people have. So if you've got 120 in savings and you've got a healthcare cost that's going to be somewhere between 200, you're going to be needing this no matter what, and then would have no extra money at all to pass on to children. So that to me is the difficult part. You worked your entire life expecting to have something to make the next generation's life better, and you don't. And most of us weren't even aware that this problem was coming. So what do? Some people say just give it all away. Medicaid has a penalty for doing that. They call it a 5-year look back penalty. If you have given anything away, for less than fair market value. So let's just say I had a pickup truck. I gave it to my grandson. It was worth 5,000, but I just said, you can have it for 500. I want him to have a little skin in the game. I gave away $4,500 worth of fair market value. That will result in a penalty that they are going to then take and turn it into a length of time. So cash gets translated into a length of time where they deny eligibility and will not pay your health care bill. So for every $10,000, they refuse coverage for 1 month. If I'm in a facility, what do I do about that? I don't know. They don't care. You got to go figure it out on your own. And that's why so many people, the very first time they come to see me, they've already had this problem. Nobody warned them. They gave it away. They heard somebody say that was the right thing to do, but you're going to get penalized. And then there's not any cash to take care of it. You really need, if at all possible, to get in touch with somebody who can help you plan before 5 years. But remember what I said, it's never too late. Even if you came in the door after you're needing the care, still can help. And most of the time, we can get rid of any penalty or any struggle. The trouble with it is if you've already made a mess, it costs more. Nobody likes paying an attorney money, right? But it costs more to fix the problem than to have prevented the problem. And the longer you wait, the more difficult, the more problems that I have to unwind. So planning in advance is really important, but it's never too late. And I want to save them family money no matter what happens. So find somebody, okay? Now, what we do is the government, this sounds strange that we're looking for loopholes. But what the government has done is it's made the rules and said, this is the rule unless you follow this exception. I'm going to give you an example right now about the house, but in every situation, there is going to be exceptions. So all we're doing is saying, what did the government tell us to do in a very precise way so that we comply with their rules? We're not exploiting them. We're actually following them because they are written very directly to do X, Y, or Z. So what are some of them? We've all heard people say you end up losing your house, right? We've all heard something like that. But these are the exceptions. Oops, my slide is messed up, so I don't know what's written on top of each other. But here are 8 exceptions to lose the house or to prevent you from losing the house. If there's a spouse living in the house, it's already excluded. You shouldn't stop there because if the first one passes away, the second one would lose it, but it gives you the chance at that very first need for care to exclude it permanently. You could have co-ownership of the house that would keep it from being a countable asset whatsoever. If someone other than your spouse co-owns it, you don't give it away, but you sell interest to another person. If you have a sibling, a brother or sister that has an equity interest or has performed caregiving services for 12 months prior to you going into a facility, that allows you to give the house to that sibling free and clear so it stays in the family. Then they can later give it to whomever you wish. If you have a child who has been a caregiver for you the 2 years prior to you needing the long-term care in home or a facility, you can give the home to that child. So they're essentially inheriting it, but they have to have done that for 2 years opposed to just 1 year like your sibling. If you have a child, regardless of their age, who is disabled because of some disability, doesn't matter if it's SSI or SSDI, you can give the house to them free and clear. There are 2 other exceptions, though, and I will put them in the second category. The intent to return home or the intent to sell. I'm singling these out because if you go to a nursing facility, they often will have free services that are not attorney law firms. They are groups like Medicaid Done Right, Elder Advantage out of Owensboro. There's 3 or 4 that work across the nation, but these companies have a partnership with the nursing homes, so they will file your application for free. So instead of coming and paying me, it sounds so appealing to tell our residents, hey, we have a service, we will do it for you. And it doesn't cost you anything because that business gets a stipend, a kickback from the nursing home. because they don't do any of the cash saving options that the law firm would do. And they don't do anything for your house either. They rely upon these two exceptions. So they'll simply tell Medicaid, John Doe has the intention of returning home. And when you tell Medicaid that, Medicaid will exclude the house and give you coverage. But what they're doing is setting you up for failure, because when you pass away, then Medicaid puts a lien upon your house. This is called Medicaid estate recovery. And at probate, forces you to sell the house. And you might say, I can get around that because we're just not going to do probate. You cannot get around it. They will put a lien on the house and they will force the sale of the house. So attempt to sell or intent to return home usually will backfire and mean you lose the house in the end. You really need to see an attorney about this stuff. Don't trust the free services. If they're non-attorneys, they're not going to be able to help you. Okay, now let's talk about the cash a little bit. If I am married, I want to show you how we save half. If I am married and I go in the facility and I have anywhere between these two numbers, the 32,000 or the 166,000, Medicaid says the money between me and my spouse is to be divided equally. If I had 100,000, that means 50,000 for my wife, 50,000 for me. My wife gets to keep all of it as long as her part she's keeping is less than the 166. So if she's less than the 166, she keeps all of her 50,000 or her half, let's just say that. And I have to spend all of my 50,000, my half, except for the $2,000 that they grant me as an exclusion. So I have to spend down 48,000. That is what I'm saying we can prevent. So we could save you with a married couple. She gets 50. We can save you your 50 and you don't have to spend down at all. But what they want you to do is not take advantage of the exception and actually spend down and lose this money. I don't want you to do that for two reasons. Number one, when you go into the nursing facility, they allow you to keep of your income $60 per month. Out of that $60, what you have to do with the rest is pay your part of your income, everything above the 60, to the nursing home. So your spouse's income is going to be cut down and they're not going to have as much to live on. That's why I want you to save your half of the assets. Beyond that, Medicaid will pay for all of the rest of the balance to the nursing home, any of your prescriptions, things like that, but they won't pay for any dental work. They will not pay for hearing and vision in some cases, depending on your plan that you have. The $65 a month is not enough to provide most of us for the kinds of toiletries and other utility kinds of things that we might need. There's not any money for you to have a cell phone to call anyone. You just don't have any extra cushion, and you'll always need a cushion. So I want you to save this money if at all possible because it's part of your dignity. You really need to have something to fall back on because incidentals are going to come up. They're going to lose your hearing aids. They're going to lose your underwear. They're going to lose your slippers. They're going to lose your dentures. And how are you going to get new ones of these on $65 a month when they're losing things left and right? So there's so many things to be thinking about here. Now, there are other things like ways to save the cash. I could talk about loans, annuities, other types of land uses where we could save the home and the assets. But I want to pause, excuse me. I want to pause and go back to some of the questions and let you start asking some questions, and I'll apply what I've been talking about as we go. So I want to get specific to you. I'll start with what's in the chat, but anybody wants to raise their hand or unmute, let's go wide open into some questions and see what I can help you with. So first off, let's see. Thank you for that article. I appreciate that. Need and duration. A person turning age 65 today has nearly a 70% chance. That's exactly right. And 1/3 of all of us above age 65 are going to need that long-term care. And they're fascinating statistics to me. I know it seems morbid. The rise in Alzheimer's rates, more and more of us are getting this, a greater percentage of getting Alzheimer's all the time. And I've had that in my family. It's very scary and troubling. So your question right off the bat was, for an irrevocable trust that contains real estate as well as financial accounts, does Medicaid see the deposits related to book royalties and other income that go directly into that trust? Yes and no. It depends upon how you placed that into the trust. So let's say if the contract, the right to the royalties, is something that is transferable to an entity, sometimes they are, most of the time they're not, then they are going to be owned by the trust, and the receipts as they're coming in on a monthly basis are not countable income whatsoever. If, on the other hand, you are not able to transfer the royalties to any other person or entity, then they're still going to be counted as income to you. Then you would have to do some sort of strategy on a monthly basis, perhaps, to protect those in there. But if you're a single individual, those options are going to be very unlikely to hold up. You're probably going to lose the royalties. I see this regularly for book rights and for music rights a lot of times. So it's hard on royalties, and we don't know that earlier in our life when we're gaining this kind of revenue stream to craft the language the right way. But now would be a good time if you have something like that. You talk to the persons, the publishing house, whomever it may be, and see if you can reform the contract to allow it to be transferable to trust without it counting. If the trust is able to own it, it will not count. If the trust is not, then there's no way around this. You're going to lose it as income. I love the question that you're thinking about very practical life examples. And let's see, asks, what are the tax implications for an irrevocable trust to a trustee? The trustee of the trust is controlling the trust, but is not actually the person taxed. The trust itself is taxed, but not the trustee. Just think of it as a custodian. It's not the trustee's money at that point. Now, most of the time, when people develop trusts for their own planning, that I'll use myself as an example, I might put my daughter in charge of my trust. She will someday inherit out of that trust, but until she does, it's not hers, so no taxable income for her. But the trust itself is required to file a tax form, a 1041, taxable back to me. When I set these up, if you will follow my direction, you will not have any taxable income. Even if you were to mess it up, the highest possible taxable income would be taxed back to you, the one that set it up. That's called a grantor or a settlor. The trust maker would be the one taxed at whatever their existing tax rate is. So I'm going to go deeper than this because this is how the myths and misunderstandings come back. If you go talk to your CPA who would not understand this stuff, they're smarter than me in lots of ways, but they don't understand this stuff. They're going to tell you, oh, trusts are taxed at the highest possible corporate tax rate, 37%. They've been as high as 40%, and the government's always changing that rate, but they're the high end, 37. Most people with any kind of income are taxed more in the 18 to 20% bracket. So you're talking about twice as much taxes for a trust. But we create the trusts with a parachute back door that allows, if you have not passed away, it doesn't get taxed at that rate, or free gift to your children is really what would happen. It gets taxed backward to you, the one that put the stuff in there. So it's just going to be a lower income tax rate unless you're just mega wealthy. Even with that said, we compose the trusts in ways that the trusts always have write-offs, and you shouldn't have to pay any taxes if you'll go through our tax planning like we ask you to and follow the rules. But it's a great question, because what you read on the internet is you're going to be paying all this kind of tax. They're really stock it to you, but that's just not true. You just need to have your attorney guide you through it. Okay. Wonderful stuff. Thank you for telling me about the slides earlier, everybody. So I don't have any, there we go. Get another question. Thank you. Let's say another question. Since I brought up annuities, are QLEX deferred income annuities that reside in a Roth or an IRA protected by Medicaid? Okay, so any type of deferred instrument. Not all annuities are deferred, but they still fit in this sort of category. But let's just say a Roth IRA, a traditional IRA, because they're tax deferred, the government gave them special status. And they included annuities in there because it was too complicated for Medicaid to think through it all. So all three categories, traditional, Roth, and annuity, is excluded in principle. So let's say I have an IRA of $100,000. The rule on IRAs is that when I become 72 and a half, I'm required to start taking minimum required distributions, RMDs. And so each month, sometimes the company will allow you to take them quarterly or annually. But when I get this payment out, my $100,000 was excluded by Medicaid, but my RMD is not. So the income my IRA generates, I lose because it flows straight on over to the nursing home. Another one I miss. Oh, you don't have to worry about the IRA, it's excluded. Principal's excluded, RMDs are not. So you saved, you put all that money in there for your individual retirement account all those years just to get no benefit out of it whatsoever. So I tend to go through a process with my clients to evaluate, is this something that we should begin to liquidate out and put it in a sheltered instrument so that Medicaid cannot take the income either? But that's a person by person evaluation to see, are the taxes cheaper than the RMD loss? And we can work through all that. But it's a very careful process of deciding because it's not the same situation for every single person. So yeah, the only principle is protected. I love the question. All right, asked another great question. Mom's in a nursing home. Her husband passes away. She's still of sound mind, and you are her disabled child. If I get the land, the mobile home, is it totally exempt from that MER, that Medicaid estate recovery, due to the disabled child exemption? Yes, it is. What will happen is you'll get all kinds of nasty grams from Medicaid saying, we're going to foreclose, we're going to place a lien, you're going to pay us back, you've got to go through estate recovery. They're just scaring you to death. And then they'll say, you must file this letter, which allows you to apply for the exemption, and a disabled child exemption allows you to get around that so that they will not recover. And that's not going anywhere. Great approach to take. I still would encourage your family to look into additional planning because there are circumstances where other things, the house might be fine, but there might be other things that we've not thought about that might be in jeopardy, and you would want to think through it all. We have a process where we would research everything about the family, figure it out, give you some recommendations. If you don't need anything, you don't need anything. Great. Good for you. But I'd rather be safe than sorry. But I do promise you, what you've put in your question, you're good to go on that. The house will be safe. The only problem you're going to face is you're going to have the intent to return home or the attempt to sell requirement. You're not allowed to hold the house if mother is in the facility without applying for one of the exemptions. So there still is a lot of work to it. The downside of that work is they're still going to give you all the nasty grams trying to scare you to death. You can at that point choose to go ahead and transfer it from mother to you under the disabled child exemption, and it's not going to impact anything. Taxes and everything are going to be exactly the same. So if I were to choose one or the other, go ahead and take the exemption at filing and don't worry about the estate recovery later. It'll be less stressful, it'll be cleaner, but both of them give you exactly the same result in the end. If you need more help understanding what I just told you, give me a call. I'll work you through it, or send me an email. Now, your second part of your question is what happens when I, a disabled child who have received the house, what happens when I pass? This is where it gets really complicated. So anybody listening to me, do not apply this to you because it's different for every single family. It's going to depend upon whether or not you are on SSI. Under SSDI, you are allowed to have people inherit from you. So you can put it in your will. I want this to go on to my brother, my sister, my child, anybody. Send it to your favorite lawyer in town. That's fine. Under SSI, you can't do that. Under SSI, it's going to have to be sold from you. So again, see an attorney. I could protect the house even after that second generation so that the state government would never get it. But you're going to have to go through a legal process to get that. So I've answered the rest of the question. Can I pass it on? It depends. Can you sell it? It also depends. Depends upon the type of disability you're receiving. Okay. Great questions. I appreciate it, guys. Keep them coming. This asks, how hard is it to get a home and community-based Medicaid waiver? There's another program you need to know about too, and then I'll work you through both. There is also the PACE program, PACE. PACE is available in less rural areas. So the bigger counties, Madison County, Fayette County, Jefferson County, all have PACE program. The PACE program allows far more people to qualify and they give more coverage. So the home and community-based waiver, Medicaid will pay for up to 40 hours of nursing and respite care per week. They will also do not just respite care, but housekeeping, meal preparation, all kinds of stuff, but only 40 hours a week. Under the PACE program, if you're in the larger areas, you'll have unlimited care. You could do up to 24-hour-a-day care. They'll pay that much as long as you're still mobile. If you're no longer mobile, you don't get either option. You have to go to the facility. The difference in the waiver is there's only 17,000 waivers for the entire state. There's typically a waiting list of a year and a half. And the 17,000 waivers, when they start giving them out beginning January 1st, tend to be gone by the time you get to June. Not enough waivers, long wait list. If you do something wrong, you get bounced to the bottom of the list. And it is a difficult application, much more difficult than others, because you have to apply 3 applications that all have to get synced at the same time. And if one goes wrong, the other 2 get kicked out. So it's pretty hard, but we do help people with that. PACE is easier and it's more comprehensive if you're still mobile. So that's a good option for you. But in either PACE or waiver, home-based waiver, you are staying in your home. All right. Thank you. I see that SSDI now. So I think you're going to be fine, sir. I appreciate you clarifying there. Feel like I know you already. You told me everything about your family. Let's see. Very good. Thank you for that link. That's great. Okay, so that's all of them in the chat. Anybody want to unmic and ask me anything else? Can I clarify further or anything at all for you? We're here for a few more minutes, and I want to see what I can do to help you. While I'm waiting on you to gain courage, I'm going to tell you a few things here. You see on the screen right now, phone number to call. I'd love for you to call and set up a consultation. You'll meet with a special person on the staff. All they do is meet with people every single day to help see, can we truly help you? Is there a good fit? Can we work together? And then they'll set you up with the best path for you, and the whole process will start. Got it very measured so you know exactly what to do step by step. Now, if you just need a question about tonight, that info@elderlaw, that email address, the same one you got the link on, send me a message. I'll answer any question you want me to answer if you send me that. I'd also like if you want to send me a message and say, Scott, I love this one, but I have another topic I think you should talk about. Tell me. I'll develop an R about that. Another thing you can do, I would really appreciate it if you took your phone, you could point the camera part of your phone at this and hit the button, and it'll take you to a website to give a Google review. Now, why do I care about that? I'm not trying to become famous. It's just the more reviews I have, every time I put an ad out for a free webinar, Google will send it out to even more people. So you leaving a review does two things. It helps more people get free information. Number two, it allows you to give people confidence. If it seems like I'm a legit guy, know what I'm talking about, helped you with your situation, you know how much it's hard to trust people nowadays. But if you've had some experience, you can say in the rear, yeah, he was a good guy. He helped me. He did this. The information is sound. I tested it off my next door neighbors, dogs, friends, uncle, whatever you need to say. And it'll help everybody else. So leave me a review if you want. If you don't want, that's okay too. Just come back next time and we'll keep on helping you just the same. The other thing, until somebody unmutes, hey, thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you for that because it helps me remember something. Everybody that's on here tonight, we're going to send you a recording of this. So you'll get all of this again. I don't send it out to people. It is posted on YouTube eventually with more protections for identity. But if you just want a recording because you thought it was good and you wanted to share it with a neighbor, you're going to get a recording of this tonight. Let's see. So it's back to the Google review. You can call, schedule an appointment. We'd be happy to work with you. Send me an email just to ask questions or other requests. But besides that, what else? Any other questions before we get off of here tonight? We still got 4 minutes and I'd love to help. Any questions at all? I'll ask you one. Okay, great. Here's another question. Is there anything I could have made clearer or better for you tonight? Anything that would have improved this? I've seen some names before. Maybe you've been in one or two of these before, and you could tell me a pointer or two. I'm happy to receive feedback. Anything I can do to make these better for your life, more concrete for you. I'm going to answer your question while they're thinking. Does Medicaid only place a lien after the loved one passes? Yes. Let me make it clearer. I fight Medicaid estate recovery a lot. I'm not a fan of the program. I think it ought to be changed. It costs the state of Kentucky more to run it than the money they recuperate. It's a margin that they bring back ever. So I think it's a waste of taxpayer dollars. And I really believe we ought to balance our budget. That's just me politically, but I want you to know where I'm coming from. I think the government ought to be responsible, and this program wastes money. It doesn't gain them money. Now, I'll tell you that because what the program is supposed to do is place the lien on the house immediately, but they don't. Some states do place the lien on the house after the Medicaid recipient does pass away. Kentucky doesn't even do that. I don't know if they're lazy. I've told them what the law says. I've read them the federal law. I talked to the ones in Frankfurt. They still will not do it. And because of that, I think they open themselves up to being able to deny, attorneys like me, able to deny the claim for Medicaid estate recovery. So we fight this thing out in court all the time. Now, what does that mean to you? I tell you the story so that you don't rely upon it. Just because there is no lien, which is required under federal law and state law, they don't do it. But just because there isn't one doesn't mean you shouldn't be careful, because they're going to still bring the claim in the probate court even when there's not a lien. I think that's actually illegal of them, but they do try it and they often win. So be very careful with this thing. The way Kentucky, policy wise, the way Kentucky sees it is they don't believe the lien attaches until death. And I can see some logic in that, because let's say my dad needs nursing home today. I'm not disabled. He's in the nursing home 3 years. But 2 months before his death, I'm in a car accident. I become disabled. If they already had the lien on there, now they've got to take it off. So why not wait until the time of death to figure it out? I think that's probably their reasoning, but they never put a lien on there no matter what, even though they're required by law to do so. So hope that helps you. I go through, yeah, I just see your question there. How about I send you an email if that's okay with you? I'll make a note right now and do it before I leave the office tonight. I don't want to put something out there that might compromise you. Okay. Appreciate the question though. It's a great question. I think that's A. Thank you very much for the compliment. I appreciate that. Any of you, if you would, it helps me so much. I appreciate the kind words, but it also helps if you would do a Google review. That is such a big deal of gaining confidence for other people. People are afraid to go to a lawyer. We go to doctors all of our life, right? It's still scary to go to the doctor, but we get used to it. Most people never go to an attorney once, twice in their life. So you really need some confidence that it's not going to be all of these horror stories. There are good attorneys everywhere. There are bad attorneys everywhere too, but it's not as scary as it has to be. So a Google review really helps that. Last thing, and I'll let everybody go. We're going to have another webinar on the 27th. The next one is the VA benefits. There's a VA benefit that can help you stay in your home much longer. You don't even have to worry about Medicaid in that situation if you're in your home and that's all you ever need. And it's a benefit that only 7% of everybody who's eligible ever even asks for the benefit. Huge benefit for most people. It will double your income. And it's available not just for a veteran, it's available for the spouse of the veteran as well. So you're going to automatically, unless you opt out, you're automatically going to get invited to that. Registering helps you get, you're going to have to register sooner or later when that invitation comes, but that's what the QR code here is for. Thank you, everyone. I see one more question I'll attack. Thank you. Appreciate those questions. Does Medicaid come after a person who has a life estate on a deed? No, they don't currently, but they have the right to. Kentucky has just had a policy that they would not. And I have attorneys that'll say, you know what, we don't care if they're not going to come. That's the end of it. They scare me though, because we watch the governors come and go, and the governors change the policy. And just because Medicaid used to not do it, doesn't mean the next governor couldn't change the policy and make them start doing it. So be careful with a life estate deed, but currently life estate deeds receive an exemption, but that can very easily change. Most of the other stuff I'm talking about tonight would not change. So very good. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you so much being here, and I hope to see you again sometime. Give us a call. We want to help your family. Bye-bye now.